Too many marriages have an escape hatch in their relationship, and it gets open when things get hard, when things get difficult. Today, I want to talk about how do we eliminate the escape and grow in our marriages. Come on, let's have a conversation. Welcome to the Purpose Project podcast. My name is Brandon Goff. I get to be the host of this podcast and go on a journey with so many of you on unlocking the purpose that God has put on the inside of us. So glad that you're on here today and checking us out. I'd love it if you'd like, subscribe, review, share the podcast, help us get it out there a little bit more and get the word out. And not only do I get to be the host of this podcast, I get to be the pastor of Radiate Church in Columbia, South Carolina, with a campus in Florence, South Carolina as well. And man, it's an amazing journey that I get to walk each and every single day. At the beginning of this month, we started a series of talks called REALationships, building real relationships in life. And the truth is, relationships make up much of our life. You know, we're entering, or we're right in right now, the month of love, if you will, February. And a lot of times our minds around now start shifting towards relationships. And granted, it's usually romantic relationships, dating, engagement, marriage, whatever, things like that. But really, relationships build up our lives. And so we wanted to take a few weeks and we really wanted to focus around how do we build meaningful, impactful, life-giving relationships, friendships, acquaintances, coworkers, leadership relationships, whatever, with people, and even romantic ones. So we're going to take this episode and the next episode, and we're going to talk a little bit about marriage. Now, here's what I know. Not everybody that listens to this is married. I know that. Like, there's singles, there's people that have been divorced, there's people that have never been married, there's people that are hoping to date, you're single and ready to mingle. Like there's all kinds of people that listen to this podcast, and we're grateful for that. But you can hear the title, you know, about marriage and all this stuff. And if you're not married, you can go, I don't need to hear that. Stick with me, because I really believe there's some stuff in here that can help you no matter where you are in life. In fact, what I'm talking about today, I wish I knew before I got married. Not because my marriage is a problem. Don't get me wrong. My marriage is amazing. But because it would have been a whole lot easier at the beginning for me to be the man that my wife deserves. It would have been a whole lot easier for me to be a mature man of God, a mature man in the house, if I'd have known some of these things. So I want you to stick with me, learn with me. Let's walk this out, because we all have a purpose. And relationships have a lot to do with that. In fact, I've been saying this throughout the whole series of conversations, that I believe that our purpose is found in community, not isolation. It's found in relationships with others, and that does include marriage. In fact, I think marriage and marriage relationships, romantic relationships, have a lot to do with how forceful we'll be in chasing the purpose of God, how successful we'll be in chasing the purpose of God. As we do that together. So I want to take a few minutes today and just really talk about this idea of eliminating the escape in marriage. Too many, statistically, way too many marriages end in divorce. Way too many marriages end in separation. And I know some of you listening, like you've been through that nightmare, that painful nightmare of divorce. And I don't want you to sit here and listen to this and think that I think you're wrong for that, because there are situations where it is very warranted and is very justified. There are also situations where we just have an escape hatch that we open way too easily in disagreement and in all these other things. But here's the truth I want to remind you of in marriage today. Marriage is a covenant, not a contract. Marriage is a covenant, not a contract. A contract is written and agreed to based on mutual distrust. A covenant is based on mutual commitment. Here's what I mean. If I write a contract and I have in the contract, right, a clause that if you don't do what you said you're going to do, I have an out. I have an easy way to get out. Maybe if it's a construction contract, I get paid anyway, or I can just walk away from the job with all the material. I don't know what it is, but there's an out, right? There's always a clause. That's that is the part of the contract of why it exists, because it's built on this idea. I don't trust you to really do what you said you were going to do anyway. And so if you don't, I'm going to still come out okay. I'm going to write this contract so that I'm taken care of, and I can get out of this thing, and I'm not bound to this thing. I don't trust you, so I need to be safe just in case my mistrust is actually correct. A covenant, though, is a promise made between two parties based on trust, based on this idea that we're both going to do and we're both going to be what we said we were going to do and who we said we were going to be. It's a covenant. It's a promise. A covenant is a deeper based promise that is dependent on the truth that it is never broken, it's never compromised, but it's always accomplished. Neither side, when you enter the covenant, you're saying, I'm not going to break this thing. We're in this thing. This isn't a contract. You don't get an out. There's not a clause in it. This is a covenant. Contracts limit my responsibility and increase my rights. So a contract, it creates an entitlement rather than an encounter. So why do I say it like that? Because often when we treat our marriage like a contract, then I'm entitled to you to do your part, even if I don't. It's in the contract. You said, so you have to, right? And I'm entitled to certain behaviors. I'm entitled to certain things. It's this entitlement rather than an encounter of a relationship. Contracts create entitlement rather than encounters. When I treat my marriage like a contract, I don't encounter my spouse like a blessing. I don't encounter my spouse like, but here's the truth. Before she was your wife, she was God's daughter. And before he was your husband, he was God's son and still is. And whenever I live this thing as a contract, I don't see them that way. I don't see them as that. I see them as a business negotiation. You said you would, so therefore. So when you do this, I'll do this. And it's when we begin to negotiate terms in our marriage and all these things. And I don't treat them like a blessing. I don't encounter my spouse as a blessing. I don't encounter my spouse as the better half. But I'm entitled to the fulfillment of their end of the deal. So you said, so therefore. No, this isn't about me. This is about you. You, and it's contract. Entitlement always leads to taking someone or something for granted. Entitlement, that's actually the definition of entitlement, is we're taking it for granted. Like, I deserve this because blank. In entitlement, I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. Entitlement will ruin your life, first of all. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with an entitled person. Nobody wants to be married to an entitled person. I'm entitled to this. I'm entitled to that. We're not entitled to anything. Man, everything we have is a blessing. Your spouse isn't a negotiated product in a contract. Your spouse is a blessing from God to chase, to pursue, and to cherish. To love, man, to do life with, to laugh with, to love, to build a family with, to build adventure with, and memories with, and legacy with, and chase purpose with. Not a negotiated product. What a boring way to look at a marriage. And when we don't eliminate the escape, we treat it as a contract. Hey, if you don't come through, then there is a way out for me. And I don't really want to talk today about how to stay together. All right, I can tell you all kinds of things that you can do just to keep the peace long enough to stay together and be okay. And I don't really want that. I want to talk about how to grow together. How can you and your spouse grow together? Galatians 6, 7 through 9 talks about this idea of reaping what you sow. All right, and you reap a little, you get a little. You reap what you sow. Here's two truths out of Galatians 6, 7 through 9. You can go read those for yourself, those verses there. But here's two truths about it. Okay, number one, you will reap what you sow. I will reap what I sow. You will reap what you sow. The person driving on the interstate next to you today will reap what they sow. It's just a reality. We reap what we sow. So think about it like this. If I'm happy and I'm smiling, guess what I'm going to reap? Happy and smiling environments. Smiling is actually contagious. Scientifically, smiling is contagious. Laughing is contagious. It's hard to look at somebody that's smiling and not smile. It's hard to do, right? Why? Because it's contagious. So here's what I would say. If you give grace, if you give thoughtfulness, if you give love, if you give affection, if you give pursuit, if you give encouragement, you're going to reap those things. But on the contrary, if you give criticism, if you give controlling nature, if you give complaining, if you give being miserable, if you get the point. If I give those things, I'm gonna get those things. So what happens is in our marriage, a lot of times we'll get mad at what the other person's giving us without actually looking at and reviewing what are we giving them. I'm gonna reap what I sow. So if I'm always miserable, now here's the truth: like circumstances happen in life. There's hard times, there's hard things, right? I'll never forget when I had my Achilles surgery, and man, I was miserable during that. The pain was excruciating. I couldn't walk. I couldn't get around very well. I was mad because I couldn't be at work. It was around the Christmas season, so mobility was a difficult thing. It was just a lot, right? And I was pretty miserable. And there was a season where my wife was like, he's just mad, like whatever, it is what it is. And she dealt with it. But she's not going to deal with that long without giving it back. Why? Because I've created now an environment to where that's just how I'm acting, and she's going to give it back. It's a reciprocal thing. I'm going to reap what I sow. If you don't like what you're getting, ask yourself, what am I giving? My wife likes to say it like this: be what you want to see. Okay? Here's what she's trying to say. If you want to reap good things, you want to reap pursuit, love, encouragement, if you want to reap all those things, give it, be it, show it, make it a priority in your life. Don't just wait for them to do it. You do it too. You do it first is what I'd say. If you want honor, you want respect, you want pursuit, you want affection, you want all those things, show it, sow it, be it. So you will reap what you sow. Here's the other truth. You will reap where you sow. You will reap where you sow. If I plant a seed, all right, I think we're all smart enough to realize the answer to this. If I plant a seed at my house in South Carolina, and it's an apple tree, and I plant that seed and I give it time to grow and all that stuff, and then I go to my parents' house looking for the growth of the apple tree in their house that's a couple counties over, right? And I go and I do that. That is not where the growth of the apple tree is going to be. It's going to be in my yard, not their yard. Why? I planted it in my yard. Many of us in our marriages get real mad that we're not reaping in our marriage when we're sowing in our job. We're planting more seeds in our job. We're spending more time in our job. We're spending more time with our friends. We're spending more time in extramarital relationships that should not be happening. We're spending more time on our phones and our devices, and we're not reaping anything in our marriage. And so where I want to sow, I'm not, but it's because I'm not sowing where I want to, or I'm not sowing where I want to reap. And here's my point. If you want a good marriage, put the work in. If I invest all my passion into my hobbies, I'm glad you have a hobby. Get a hobby. But if I put all my passion into my hobbies, into my kids, right, or into extracurricular things, but I don't put them into my kids, I don't put them into my marriage, I don't put it into my family, how can I get mad that my wife I'm not reaping from my wife, I'm not reaping from my kids, I'm not reaping from my family when I'm not putting any of my passion there? No, we got to look and go, this is where I'm at. I will reap where I sow. Now here's the truth. Watch this. There's an old phrase, the grass is greener on the other side. That's a lie. The grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. You want a good marriage? Love your wife well. You want a good marriage? Love your husband well. You want a good family? Love your kids well. Man, sow into that and sow good things into that, biblical things into that, life-giving, impactful things into that, because you will reap what you sow and you will reap where you sow. Here's a reality for your marriage today. Your marriage will be as good as you both decide that it will be. So here's my encouragement. If you're sitting in here and you're watching or listening to this today and you're like, man, I need to eliminate the escape. I need to go all in. I need to put all my energy in being the man God called me to be. Men, let me talk to you for a minute. Men, stop expecting your wife to do what God's called you to do. Lead your family, lead your wife, pray for her, be with her, make the decisions, do what needs to be done, and stop expecting your wife to be the man of the relationship. Wives, let me talk to you for a minute. Let him lead. Let him go. Let him be what God called him to be. And both of you give grace. Give grace to one another. Give mercy to one another, right? This marriage, your marriage, will be as good as you both decide it will be. I just want to encourage you, eliminate the escape. Go all in on your marriage. Make it a covenant, not a contract. There's not a clause to get out. There's a covenant we're going to commit to. We're going to walk this. We're going to love each other. We're going to walk through the good, the bad, the ugly, for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, for in sickness and in health. We're walking this thing out together. Your marriage, hear me, is worth the work. My hope today is that you've gotten inspired to make sure that you're sowing what and where you want to reap. If you're single and you're listening to this, congratulations. You just got some advice, some practical advice. You just got your head spinning and turning in the right direction, and honestly, in a way that I wish I would have before marriage. It would have helped me learn, because I learned the principle of I reap what I sow and I reap where I sow way too late. And it cost me some hard years of marriage, but it was my fault. It would have helped me a ton, and I hope it helps you a ton. If you're married, I want to give you this real practical challenge. As soon as this is over, in just a moment, text or call your spouse after this episode. Say something you love about them. If it's your husband, your wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, if you're engaged, whatever, shoot them a text, make a video, audio call, audio message, whatever you want to do. But right after this, let them know how much you love them. Let them know how much they mean to you. Maybe even flirt a little bit, be a little scandalous, Just go ahead and make their whole day. Doesn't matter. But do something to go, I'm eliminating the escape. I've made it way too easy to get mad and have the option to walk out. And I'm not doing that. I'm going all in. And shoot them that text, shoot them that call, shoot them that video, whatever. Send it to them, love on them, and let them know how much of a blessing they are in your life. I hope today has been helpful for your marriage. I hope today has been helpful for you, and I hope it's something that we can walk off. Here's what I want you to remember, or walk out. Here's what I want you to remember. You matter to us. You matter to God. You have a purpose. So does your spouse. We can go change the world. I can't wait to see you back here next week as my wife joins us on set and we begin to debunk some marriage myths. I'll see you then.